I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, June the 30th, brought to you in part by Livestock Risk Services. Those are your LRP professionals. And if you guys haven't heard about the LRPs and you're not using them, you definitely need to call these guys and look into it, especially if you're a backgrounder of feeder cattle. It's where it's working the best. It's absolutely a great thing, and the government kicks in from 35 to 55% of your premium, which you won't get anywhere else. You buy it off of prices or premiums that are set according to the board, which that's inflated. That's how you start out with your strike price, and then whenever you sell them or settle back, it's off your if you're off your cash price. So you're already $3 or $4 or $5 to the good when you start off, because that cash price is so much more realistic or down from what your board is. So that's what you're looking for. You're ahead of the game. Hasn't been working quite as well on your fed cattle, because I mean, we're not used to having a $8 basis or something like that. But you guys need to call Livestock Risk Services and talk to them about that. We're going to get back into seasonal patterns where it'll work better for fed cattle, but get a hold of them at livestockriskservices.com. First of all, happy 4th of July. Forget all your differences. Forget all this stuff going on in politics. Try to forget all this inflation if you can. Have a good time with those people that you love and your family and friends. Even in the cattle business, we've got people that are kind of at odds against things. We're all looking for the same result. We just got different ideas about how to get there. But have a great 4th of July. We're going to take a break here at Feeder Flash for about a week. So I'm doing this for Thursday here today, and we're not going to have another one until next Thursday, because we're getting where the runs are really light here late in the week, because people are getting ready for the big long holiday weekend. They may not be doing that on Thursday or Friday, but by the time you ship cattle to those feedlots, the people that work those cattle, they want to spend time with their family too, guys. But all your big Monday sales will be off. We will start getting back to some sales on about Wednesday of next week. OKC West El Reno is going to sell all classes of cattle on Wednesday next week, and then they'll kind of pick up from there. But I'm planning ahead. I'm going to be going right after the 4th on the 5th to South Coffeyville Stockyards Blue Stem Special. So I'll be there, and then I'm thinking on Wednesday I'm going to be able to get into Quapaw, Oklahoma at Downstream Casino, and hopefully be able to get a report knocked out before Wes Spinks and Scott Kirby and a bunch of those people that lead me astray start showing up around there. So that's what the plan is right now. So appreciate all you guys that watch this. Appreciate all the sponsors. Appreciate everybody at DV Auction for making this possible, and my co-workers there. But really humbled by the following that we have here, and try to do a good job every day. Even the haters. I know some of you just watch it because you don't like what I have to say, and you like to text other people that don't like what I have to say, but you're still watching, so I guess that's a good deal. But tale of two feedlot areas is what we're going to talk about today. And what I'm trying to do as an end result, by the time I get to the end of this report, is try to justify the goings on at the special feeder cattle auction they had at Bassett, Nebraska. Now, I know that's a big ask. I don't know if I'm going to be able to justify that, but I'm at least going to tell you some of the things that lead into people doing things like that. But you talk about the difference between the Northern Plains and the Southern Plains feedlots, and I'm basically talking about Nebraska and Iowa in the north, and Kansas and Texas in the south. Colorado is kind of caters to both sides. It depends on what the quality of the cattle are and which feedlots you're dealing with. But your Northern Plains feeders, they basically feed for quality. They're not as interested in efficiencies and things like that. They buy the best cattle, they feed the best cattle, they feed them hard, and they make the highest grading cattle in the world, basically, unless you want to talk about a little dab of Wagyu stuff somewhere. But basically, your Iowa and Nebraska cattle are the best cattle, best grain-fed cattle in the world. They feed for that. They're proud of that. They negotiate for the highest prices. They negotiated for as much as $151 in Nebraska on Wednesday. So, you know, they are absolutely out there in the game. Old school, if you want to call them that. I know most of you understand that's a term of endearment and it's not running you down at all, but that's the way you do it. Southern Plains, they're basically feeding for the basis. They're feeding for efficiency. They're feeding for the basis. Most of the big feedlots are owned by corporate feeders. Most all of them are in bed with the packers. Most of them all have a sweetheart deal formula, or the new term is AMA, because that's supposed to sound more politically correct, but alternative marketing agreement. That they shoot for the high spots in that alternative marketing agreement, and then that's the kind of cattle that they cater to. They are not going to run out to Bassett, Nebraska and blow their brains out over the best cattle in the world. They're not even going to do that in Oklahoma City or El Reno or in Wildorado, Texas, for that matter. They're going to buy more commodity type cattle. Some of those cattle will have some southern influence in them. A lot of them are just Okie type cattle, which if you just need a layman's definition for Okie type cattle, cattle that are crossbred but predominantly English. And they want solid colored cattle, but don't really care what color they are. Then you get into Texas and you have a high percentage of feedlots that feed a lot of Mexican cattle. And the Mexican cattle aren't that bad anymore. And for you guys in the northern plains that don't get a look at them, you'd be surprised at how good some of them are. If they did have a fault, they have too much continental breeding in them, makes them extremely heavy muscled, and it makes them hard to grade. But they don't die. That's why they like them in the southern plains. But they're feeding for efficiencies in the southern plains, and like I said, they're feeding for the basis. They buy cattle as cheap as they can possibly buy them. They put them on feed. They hedge them to their eyeballs, and then they hope when those cattle are ready that there's a little basis, or I guess this week it was a $8 or $9 basis that they can put in their pocket, and it helps them achieve a break even there. And the feedlot and the cattle feeding are kind of two separate deals. They're hoping to break even feeding the cattle, and they're hoping to make that feedlot work. Well, if you charge for that feed, and you put your little surcharge on there, you charge for the yardage, you put some extra fees in there, your feedlot's going to work. So everybody's happy. In the northern plains, most of those farmer feeders and even some of those smaller commercial lots, they do a lot of the work themselves. Their sons and their sons-in-laws and their daughters and daughters-in-laws and their wives help them out with that. In the southern plains, they got employees for that. A lot of them come from south side of the border. Some of them are legal, some of them are not. But you know, those guys spend their extra time playing with their horses, whether they're racing them or cutting them or roping with them or whatever. But they're running on a big numbers, so they can justify that, kind of like the dairies do down here in West Texas and eastern New Mexico. Talk about what it costs to feed them. Well, in the northern plains, you know, your basis on corn right now is running from -60 to +25. So it's country elevators in Nebraska is running from just under $7 a bushel to just over $8 a bushel. In Iowa, they're running from about $7.35 to just over $8 a bushel. So yeah, it's higher than we're used to, and higher than what we've seen for quite a while. But it's cheaper than what you see in the southern plains. In the southern plains, you know, Texas is running feedlot delivered a basis of about $2 over what your Chicago Board of Trade is. So they're running in the mid $9 up to $9.70 a bushel. Wow. Kansas is running about par or even basis there, just about what your board is, which is around $7.70 a bushel for corn. And so you got to take that all into account. That's why they're more efficient in the Southern Plains. That's why they can afford to be less efficient in the Northern Plains. And your Northern Plains feeders, of course, right now, getting about $14 a hundred higher price for their fat cattle, for sure 12. And in the Southern Plains, you know, they're the ones that are selling cash or selling around 138. You know, they go through their sweetheart deal. Of course, we don't know what that sweetheart deal is. If we had a cattle contract library, which Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act bill calls for that to be law, then we would have a little better understanding of that. A lot of people say that they bring way more than what the cash price is, but we see that new report that they put out with here the last several months, and we look at that, and they're not getting that much more, really, guys. You know, and that includes all the cattle. Of course, some of them are better than others, but you guys in the Northern Plains, they want the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act because they want to be able to negotiate the price on their cattle, and they've got regional packers up there that need those high-grading cattle, and they've got the very best cattle in the world, and so they feel like that they've got some leverage in the trading there, and they've been negotiating cattle, so they've got some say in what the cattle bring. Guys in the Southern Plains, most of them that are selling cattle can't even remember when they sold cattle negotiated, and so all they know is their AMA, their formula, their sweetheart deal, whatever you want to call it, and they just concentrate on trying to hit the high spots in that. So they do not want Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act, even though in Texas it would only set their mandated minimum around 12.5%, and that includes negotiated grid. It would only be about 7 or 8% just pure cash. You know, I can't believe a Texas Panhandle feeder that just stomps and kicks and spits and cusses and says, by God, you know, we shouldn't have to make these packing plants down here participate in 7 or 8% of negotiated cash. Really? That's just unbelievable to me. Be a bit more in Kansas, maybe 12 or 13% pure negotiated cash, but that just is unbelievable to me. I guess they don't haggle when they go in to buy a new pickup either. They just write the sticker price, or of course you've been having to do that here lately after the pandemic, but that's why I don't have one. But you know, and then also this new thing that's come in, this board not meeting up with cash at maturation. It's got the Northern Plains feeders very frustrated because they feel like that the board in June going off the board here, of course it closed at 136.80 on Wednesday. It's sure going to be, you know, multiple dollars, you know, sure 7, 8, 10 on the top side of the market, the cash market, under what your cash price is that was negotiated this week, and they think that's ridiculous. Some of those guys aren't necessarily hedged. Some of them are just feeding cattle to help market their grain. And they know that whenever you run all the longs out of the board, out of your live cattle futures, it keeps the market under wraps all the time. They think that that board price ought to be up in 150s somewhere. And because that's where it ought to be. That's what it was justified to be. That's where it was advertised to be several months ago. Southern Plains guys, they're not worried at all. If that board wants to run $8 or $9 under what your 5 area weighted average is, that's fantastic. Put that $8 in your pocket, and that helps you out. We don't care. We don't care what the price of cattle is at all. We don't care if cattle cost $20 a hundred or $200 a hundred. It makes no difference to us. We're just feeding for the basis. We don't care really what kind of cattle we feed. We don't really worry about any of that kind of a marketing stuff. We're just concentrated on that basis. And if we can pick up sure $3 most of the year, but as much as $8 or $9, you know, heck, we're happy with that. And as long as the feedlots are making money themselves, you know, that's great. Just charging yardage and charging for the feed, selling feed installed. And that's why you just see, I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong. It's just a different way to look at things. And that's why you see the big disparity in the price. That's why you see the disparage in the way that they feel about things. You see the disparage in the way they look at this Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act that will soon be on the floor in the Senate to be voted upon. It's already been marked up through the Ag Committee there in the Senate, along with the Special Investigators Bill that will give subpoena power to P&S investigations. You know, Northern Plains is frustrated about that. Southern Plains kind of says that they're a little frustrated with that, but they really don't want to see their buddy packers get in too much trouble over the deal because they don't want to upset the apple cart. They like the way things are right now. So, you know, we've already got the House has already got the Special Investigators Bill marked up and passed. It's already passed there, so we're just waiting on the Senate to pass it. We are waiting for the House to mark up the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act. That will probably happen after the Senate passes it, and we'll see how well it passes through Senate, and that will give us a good idea of what happens in the House. But that's just a comparison. You guys know most of that, but I'm one of the few guys that will say it out loud. Let's talk about your board. On Wednesday, June live cattle futures up 50 cents. It was up a nickel on Tuesday and up a $0.50 on Wednesday, and could very well go up a little bit here Thursday, the last day of the month, but sitting at 136.80 whenever our weighted average 5 area was like 144.5. I don't believe it's going to catch it, boys. How about August down 55 at 132.17? Back months on live cattle down 27 to down 67. August feeder cattle down $1.10. Yes, corn was higher, 170.72. September feeder cattle down $1.17 at 173.77. Back months on feeder cattle down 7 cents to down $1.10. Your grains were higher, especially corn and beans. Corn was up 10 3/4 cents, 7.70 1/4. Beans up 10 1/2 cents at 16.74 1/4. Kansas City hard red winter wheat up 1 1/2 cents at 9.85 1/4. Last we've heard out of the Ukraine is that the farmers are destroying their own harvest equipment so that the Russians don't get to steal their crop. They would just soon see it rot in the field as let the Russians come in there and use their equipment to harvest that grain and steal it. So we've got a little grain report coming out here today on Thursday about planted acres, and we're going to see indeed if corn stole back some of your bean acres or not. There's a little discrepancy there, but it shouldn't be a big market mover. Talk about fat cattle trade. Saw some pretty decent trade, and we saw our market established from 145 to 150 in the Northern Plains and at 138 in the Southern Plains. Colorado had about 400 head confirmed at 145, so they're sticking with the Northern Plains right now. Iowa 3,100, and that's about all they traded so far this week. 146 to 150 live. That's steady to $1 higher in your Northern Plains. 230 to 235 dressed. Nebraska 13,900 head. They traded a couple thousand more than that this week, but getting on their way. 145 to 151 live. 232 to 238 dressed, and I told you in the Northern Plains it's mostly steady to $1 higher. Southern Plains also $1 higher. 5,000 in Kansas. They've traded about 5,900 so far. 138 live. 234 on a few dress sales in the northern part of Kansas. Texas about 3,000 head, 3,300 head for the week, all at 138 for the most part. Box beef cutout values down again. That's one reason the packers are squealing. Choice cuts down 226 at 264.88. You think, gosh, 4th of July is right here. It's too late to get that stuff into the 4th of July market. Now, if we have good depletion of our meat counters, we could see a little bit of rally after the 4th and getting ready for Labor Day coming down the line. But right now, it's too late for that. Selects down 250 at 240.81. Your slaughter running at a pretty good clip, but just about the same as last week. 375 for this week up through Wednesday. That's 1,000 less than last week, 15,000 more than the same week a year ago. I told you earlier, talking about what else is going on, going to be headed to South Coffeyville Stockyards Blue Stem special video auction that's going to be at Mullendore Ranch, Cross Bell Ranch there at Copeland, Oklahoma. 15,000 head for their video. It's going to be on dvauction.com. I'm going to be there doing the broadcasting for that and taking the online sales. They've got a lot of northern origin cattle going to be offered on that that are being backgrounded there locally. And then they've got the Teague cattle, 1,520 head of 6-weight yearlings. Where are you going to find them, guys? But Tylen Layton is encouraging people to come to that sale. They're going to have food there for you, going to have a cash bar. It's going to be kind of a neat place to be and get to watch them do that marketing. But we invite everybody to, if you're close and want to come to that sale. If not, get on to dvauction.com, view and bid that sale, South Coffeyville Stockyards Blue Stem Special. Talk about your feeder cattle market. Real-time index on DV auction late today on Wednesday sitting at 167.75. That was up $2.20, mostly because of Bassett, Nebraska. But don't forget, Big Bang Video, Primetime Livestock Videos, Big Bang Sale, all the Joplin Stockyards boys. They're going to have 35,000 head plus at Downstream Casino on July the 7th. I'm also going to be there. My good friend Susie Harrison. We're going to be doing the broadcasting and taking the bids for that sale online there. So be sure and get ready for both of those sales. A lot of feeder cattle are going to be offered, mostly all yearlings off grass. Talk about your big sales on Wednesday. OKC West, El Reno Livestock Market, 12,800 head. Feeder steers, those weighing under 8.5 or 1 to 3 higher. Those weighing over 8.5, 1 to 3 lower, but still a hell of a market. Feeder heifers are $2 to $5 lower. Steer calves on Tuesday, 3 to 6 higher to light test. Heifer calves $2 to $4 higher. You talk about your automated market report out of El Reno. Look at these yearling weights there on Wednesday. 2,136 head of 8-weight steers averaged 844 on Wednesday in El Reno. Weighted average price $157.81. Talk about 1,757 head of 9-weight steers in El Reno, averaged 946 with a weighted average price of $153.40. Look at your heifers, yearling heifers. 1,203 head of 7-weight heifers, average 750 in El Reno with a weighted average price of $151.62. Stick out deal in El Reno was the Speak Ranch steers. They had some of them last week and they sold like crazy. They were a little bit heavier this week, about $3 off, but still an eye-opener. 281 head of 1,048-pound steers bring $163.50. Talk about some individual quotes real quick. Parsons Livestock Auction in Parsons, Kansas. 133 head of 863-pound steers bring $171.10 in Parsons. Sterling Livestock Commission in Sterling, Colorado. 111 head of 854-pound steers bring $176.50. But your Zoetis stick-out sale of the day, by far, is Bassett, Nebraska. I'm convinced, I've been there at these big sales and I didn't see it, but I'm convinced that they're slipping free whiskey in the coffee there. They're spiking the barbecue sauce. It's unbelievable. Yes, they're the best cattle in the world. But yes, they've got farmer feeders and small commercial feed yards, a lot of them out of eastern Nebraska and western Iowa in there. But Bassett, Nebraska sold 7,300 head of some of the best and absolutely the highest cattle you've ever seen in your life. The highest prices we've seen since 2015. Look at this automated market report. 926 head and a lot of calves in there too, guys. You hadn't been seeing calves, but look at what these calves bring. 926 head of 5-weight steers in Bassett, average 553 with a weighted average price of $229.96. Yes, you heard it right. $230 weighted average on over 900 head of 5-weight steer calves. 1,038 head of 6-weight steer calves average $643. with a weighted average price of $219.98. Yes, $220 weighted average on all your 6-weight steer calves. And there was over 1,000 of them. 1,039 had a 7-weight steer calves in Bassett, averaged $744 with a weighted average price, not an individual quote, a weighted average price of $204.54. Unbelievable. Heifers, 904 head of 5-weight heifer calves, averaged $557 with a weighted average price on heifer calves of $200.85. 711 head of 6-weight heifers, not keeping too many back, but maybe a few, $647 on the average, $189.26 weighted average price. 813 head of 8-weight heifers, 842 pounds, $162.86 yearling heifer price. Oh my gosh. And talk about your National Beef Wire top quote for the day. I'm going to give you 3. 59 head of 649 pound steers in Bassett bring $229, weighing $650. 50 head of 725 pound steers bring $217.50. You're not drunk. 7 1/4 weight steers at $217.50. 125 head of 938 pound steers bring $176.75. You guys have a great 4th of July, and that's your feeder flash for Thursday.